I'd tell you the details, but it'd sound like I made them up.
Your problem is you spent your whole life thinking there are rules. There aren't.
Believing as I do, like the good Dr. King said, a man should be judged on the content of his character, not the color of his skin.
Yeah, he's dead. You're gonna need a different quote.
I just charged for parking.
You think they're going to ask questions when they come with their pitchforks and their torches?
It's just a flying saucer. We gotta go.
You had a piece of pie like that since the Garden of Eden.
Simply deliver a message when the time comes.
Message? To who?
To the wicked.
We're very friendly people.
No, that's not it. Pretty unfriendly, actually.
Hello there everybody and welcome to yet another episode of Very Friendly People, the Fargo Character Analysis Podcast. I am as always your humble host, Thomas Potts, and as always I'm also joined by...
a very sick Jack Breedon.
Yeah, I'm sorry man, yeah, Jack's feeling a bit under the weather, but he is still joining us today, which I'm very, very happy for.
I wouldn't miss this for the world.
Oh, bless you man. Particularly not this episode, where we're going to dive into a very positive character, and that is the character of Gus Grimly.
Yes,
Gus,
a positive ray of sunshine.
Exactly, yes. Which is what we need more than ever in these dark, dark times. Okay, so who is Gus? So Gus is sort of the, I guess, secondary protagonist. We've obviously have Molly, who very much spearheads the campaign against Leicester, whereas I think Gus's white whale is more Malvo. I mean, the very first scene that we meet Gus is the scene in which he meets Malvo. Would you say that's fair to say?
I would definitely say that's fair to say. I think in a very different way to perhaps how Malvo is maybe Leicester's white whale in the essence of him wanting to get one up him, or for the sake of pride and all that, much like in Moby Dick, for the sake of revenge. I think Gus has a lot more pure intentions. Well, certainly more than Leicester and Malvo, that's for sure.
Yes, I think that with Gus, it's the fact that he can sense that something is just not right with Lorne. But you get a sense from his character all the way throughout that there's dishonesty doesn't sit right with Gus, and so when something sticks out, something is just wrong, and somebody is being deceitful, Gus can't let that go easily.
Absolutely not. He's I've completely forgotten my point. Oh my god.
It's all right. You're excused.
I started to talk, and then I realised my mouth was moving and my brain wasn't. And I was like, this isn't the right way round. Hold on, I need to think of something first before I speak. But yes, he's a good pairing for Molly in that regard, for that disdain for deceit and lies and that quest for the knowledge and the truth. Of course, Molly wanting to unravel the mystery and the mystique, and perhaps for Gus the curiosity of what if I'd done something differently when I met Malvo. What if I had put myself and my child in danger by arresting this terrifying demon of a man?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been rewatching season 1 recently, and Gus was never a character that I have to admit was very interested in, but I've definitely gained a newfound appreciation for him, particularly with this idea of kind of lies, particularly within a story that claims to be a true story.
Yes, I would agree as well. He's certainly not on a first viewing for me anyway, he wasn't a standout character. Definitely one of my favourites, but upon doing research on this and just watching interviews with wonderful Colin Hanks, I mean, if you want to have the nicest character, you might as well get the son of Tom Hanks.
You get Forrest Gump's baby. That's exactly who you get to play this role.
Exactly.
I suppose there's kind of Gumpish qualities to Gus in the. I mean, Noah Hawley himself has described him as a bit of a man-child, which I think is maybe slightly unfair. But I guess when you look at the way, particularly that he relates to his daughter Greta, I mean, their relationship is just incredible, and they're very much on kind of equal footing. It doesn't feel as much like a typical father-daughter relationship, but they're kind of they're best mates, really. And she gives him a lot of wisdom in the same way that he tries his best to offer wisdom to her, and it's quite a beautiful. Any time that these two are on screen together, I think Joey King is the actress who plays Greta. Yeah, yes. But anytime they're on screen together and they're just like, where she's trying to give him advice on how to turn on one of the computers, and he's like, oh, they've got different computers at the precinct. It's so cute. It's so cute.
I know. The bond is so close knit, and they've got each other's backs. That relationship, I imagine, is probably so strong due to the absence of the mother passing away before the show begins. And you can definitely tell that there's a void in that life, and they've done their best, and they really have done their best. They've done a very good job of keeping their bond very, very strong. They're kind of the glue that keep each other's together.
Yes.
The reason Gus does anything is because of Greta, and Greta does so much just to kind of teach her dad, perhaps more than he teaches her.
Yes,
which is always fun to see, especially him being like you said, the man-child kind of thing. And you have a lot of characters, man-child characters in fiction, who kind of are schlubs. They're layabouts. They don't know how to look after themselves. But he isn't that. I think in fiction you have a lot of comedy characters like that. Or retrospectively, you look back on a lot of characters like that and you go, God, why was this character so liked? Because in the real world, they're just this horrible layabout who does absolutely just takes and takes and takes. And it's not that he's childish. He's just maybe not even naive in a way. He just he's definitely anxious, not quite cowardly. Well, maybe cowardly. Not that cowardly is a particularly bad thing in some cases, I don't think. But he's been missing a lot in his life and guidance in his life, and he's just tried his best to cling on to the whatever he can, whatever port in the storm, I suppose, and is making do.
Yeah, and I think that Greta is very much a very strong port in his life, and so it's interesting that when he first confronts Malvo, and this is a man who is a policeman, that is his job, but he. It's clear, I don't think he really identifies himself in that role. It's more just sort of a thing he's ended up doing. But he knows that when something is wrong, a policeman is meant to stop the bad thing. And yet, I think it is because of, not so much because of his daughter, because that implies that Greta is a source of weakness for him. It's more the fact that he doesn't have... I think the void left behind by his wife, he sees as a bit of a weakness. Because he's like, he thinks, if I die, there is literally nobody who will take care of Greta. And that is the thing that he's most afraid of. And that's why he lets the criminal get away. And that haunts him.
Absolutely. And then it's that, what do you call it? That uncertainty of feeling after that encounter that kind of drives him forward for his final confrontation with Malvo at the end.
It's when they have a full family, that's when he finally is able to kill Malvo, because because obviously there he feels that whatever happens, I know that Greta will be taken care of. But metaphorically, I suppose this filling of the void, and in many ways, I suppose Gus and Molly are two halves of a great detective. In many ways,
absolutely. Both have similar goals. Both obviously, have pretty much the same ending. Obviously, they're in that scene together because they're married together and they're now both a part of the same family. But they both let go at the end. They both... Molly with the phone call with Lester, she puts it down and gets on back to work. Gets on back to watching TV with the family. And Gus, puts down Malvo and then goes back to his family just in the same way, I think.
It's interesting because I think he's not a man who likes violence, and I think when he kills Malvo at the end, I think it bothers him, and he's like, I'm being hailed as a hero, and that's not how I see heroism. What Gus views as heroism is somebody who gets you your mail on time. That's the beautifully pure mind that Gus has.
I know. The proper Charlie Brown goodness that he embodies. And he's kind of the final loss for Malvo. He's the final victory against that kind of evil, because Malvo, when he dies, he's smiling at him. He's happy that he's killed him because he feels like he's passed off that predator mindset to Gus. But Gus doesn't go off and become a Lester and becomes off to be bitter and dark and
doesn't get infected,
and get infected by it. He walks away from that. He doesn't feel good about it, and that's the ultimate victory to that very sweet and some people said bittersweet / disappointing ending. I think is wonderfully disappointing, purposefully disappointing, in such a really poetic and slice of life kind of way. That just makes it more warm, if that makes sense.
Yes. It's also great, just talking about Gus as a mailman for a bit. One of my favourite details that I've noted is that the first obstacle that Malvo really encounters, to my knowledge, is his infuriating encounter with the mailman who refuses to give him his parcel. And I just thought I thought it was very interesting that it would ultimately be a member of the Postal Service who does him in.
Does him in, yeah. A bit of foreshadowing, yeah, in the demise of Malvo. I never even picked up on that. Yeah, that's a great scene. That's when he's picking up his priest disguise, isn't it?
The Frank Peterson, yeah.
Frank Peterson, yeah. And of course, every time he's been stopped has been by Gus. First episode, as he's speeding away, and then once again he has to quickly transform into Peterson because Gus then spots him again.
Yes.
So at every opportunity, he's just there, just coincidentally.
And of course, he's part of animal control. He's the dog catcher, and so with Malvo being the bad dog, it makes sense that the dog catcher is always going to be after him.
Yes, and it is a strange thing. It does always seem to be coincidence. That he's meeting Malvo. First time, of course, he's just on patrol with his job, and the second time he just spots him down the street and just arrests him, put him in his car, and then when he's hunting down Malvo, it's just the wolf that he seemingly randomly decides to follow towards Malvo's final resting place.
Yeah, it's like fate is just conspiring against Malvo in the form of this hapless, naive.
Yeah, it is the eternally optimistic naivety that seems to be just winning for Gus at every opportunity. I mean, a perfect split from Lester and Malvo, where everything is kind of pre-planned, or when something happens, they're desperately trying to cover it up. With Gus, he kind of things just happen, and he just kind of floats through life.
Yeah.
I suppose he just kind of takes things as they come.
I think Gus is very much a reflection of sort of early season Lester as well.
Definitely.
They have that same sort of like quite apologetic nature, and things never seem to go right for them. In fact, Gus kind of reminded me of another Coen Brothers character, that of Larry Gopnik in A Serious Man.
Yes.
That's like, just this case of always swimming against the tide and trying to be, the best person that you can be in a world that just seems so cold and indifferent to you. And of course, that goes into the conversation that he has with Ari Ziskind, his Jewish neighbor, which is one of my favorite scenes, because obviously I love me a good parable. I love me a good parable. And in that conversation, when Ari's parable basically, he says the moral is, it takes a fool to think that you can change the world. And of course, Gus's reaction is, well, you have to try, though. And that's Gus to an absolute T. No matter what, you've just got to try.
Yep. And it's definitely very telling that he doesn't quite understand or have a very a very concrete answer on it. He's not, Lester with Molly's parable, where he instantly doesn't understand it because he's a sociopath, and then later on finally has an answer and goes, look, that's what it is, blah, 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 blah. With Gus, he's definitely kind of the good side to what Lester could have been. Of going, yeah, I'm not quite sure I understand, but this is my personal belief, and I think I'm just going to stick with that. And it may not be right, but I'm just going to see what happens.
And of course, they've both had an initial interaction with Malvo, which sets them on two completely different paths. Because Lester almost seems attracted to the ability that Malvo has to lie to people, whereas Gus has so many lines that Gus says where I think there's one point where he says that the worst part that he just can't get his head around is like, how can somebody lie like that? And when he's in the police station, he's just yelling like a child would. It'd be like, he's lying. Like, it's like he's cheating. This isn't fair. How can you believe him?
And of course, no one bloody believes him.
That's the thing. Again, going back to the idea of like, I almost saw Gus when I've rewatched it as the child in a fairy tale who who meets the big bad wolf, and all the grown-ups just dismiss him because it's just a kid. And even, the name Gus Grimly, that like invokes sort of these Grimm's fairy tales of Little Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf, or Hansel and Gretel.
Yep.
And so it's interesting to cast Gus as this sort of child lost in the forest and just trying to find his way out, basically.
Absolutely. And of course, like in fairy tale, it's the same in horror movies as well. The kids are always the first ones to see the ghosts, or they go, there's something in the closet, something under the bed, and the parents all, it's nothing, you're just being such an imagination on you, you're being crazy, you're just seeing things, you're lying. And of course, Malvo is this big bad monster underneath the bed.
And ultimately, of course, it's this investigation that leads him to finally meet up with Molly, and that's when his life starts to take a little change for the better.
Yes, a match made in heaven, although it's not without its trials and tribulations, that's for sure.
Yes.
That's for bloody sure.
I'd love to think of like a kind of couples party with the Grimleys, and Molly and Gus are sat down with Greta, and they've got another family over. They'll be like, how did you two meet? It'd be like, we're on this parallel murder investigation case, and then he ended up shooting me in the middle of a blizzard.
I didn't think it was her, to be fair, but yes, I did shoot her in the chest, yes. All right.
And again, he just feels so bad about it, and he gives an entire flower store worth of flowers that he just floods her hotel room with.
I know. And Molly, still falls in love with him despite that.
Exactly, yeah. They're just,
why do you think they're such a good match? Why do you think Molly falls for Gus? What is it about Gus, essence-wise, that Molly thinks, I could start a family with this man? Just because, grew up around a lot of other bumbling cops and working with Bill Oswalt and a bunch of quite pathetic male cops, and then having your dad be a goddamn war hero.
Mm-hmm.
Gus is seemingly quite more on the pathetic end.
I suppose, but I guess that I think Molly is a good judge of character, and she's able to see the kind of potential inner strength that Gus has, because ultimately he's been able to piece together what nobody else in Molly's department seems to be able to. And so I think that through that, Molly's able to see past the man-child, past the postman, and into the heart of a hero.
And which is why they're such a good match, of course, because they're both of the hearts of the hero, but without the ego.
Yes.
Because this first season is definitely a warning sign for the dangers of having an ego. Because seemingly all the hero characters, all the good ones have absolutely no ego about them. It's all the ones who are totally full of themselves or think they're better than others that seem to meet a sticky end.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk for a little bit about... It's a very little scene, and it's quite near the beginning of Gus's story, but I find it very interesting, and it's the bizarre encounter that Gus has with Ari's wife, who's credited as Leah Ziskin.
Yes, I was just going to ask you the exact same thing.
So for those of you who don't know, there's a bit where... so his bedroom's window seems to be sort of on the same level as the Ziskin bedroom, and he catches Leah in a state of undress, and he shyly looks away, but then he looks back, and she is then purposefully... basically doing a striptease for him, and he just kind of walks away and then settles down to dinner with Greta, and we see just opposite that the Ziskin family are tucking into a meal that Leah's just prepared, and Leah gives him a little look over and then goes back. And it's a fascinating scene, just even in the way that it's shot, in that you see a lot of you see the dinner happen in the background.
Yes, and of course he himself is having a dinner with Greta.
Just tater tots with tomato ketchup.
Yeah. Comparatively, his is way. I think it's. I think that scene, it's particularly in the way it's shot. It's very, very weirdly biblical, weirdly dreamlike, fairy tale. And I think it's all to do with temptation.
Yeah, I get that.
The overt temptation, of course, of watching a woman undress, and her being another man's wife, and him, shouldn't be looking at her, but she's enjoying it, and her, then goes to feed her family, and is there with her husband and her kids, and stills look over and gives him another little nod while her bloody family's right there. And her meal and her, her family is relatively quote unquote complete. Their meal is better, their house is better, and yet, he walks away. He goes to his meal with Greta, and kind of nothing else happens with that.
Yeah,
I think it's just a sign of him overcoming temptation. It's just a weird little. One of those moments in life where something happens and then nothing really comes of it, and you just think about going, that was weird, why did that happen? But it's a good little character bit for you to understand Gus as a person, I think.
I think it also speaks volumes about how he feels that the family is incomplete, and he thinks, maybe the house could use a bit of a woman's touch. But obviously it's also it also provides a very interesting context for the later conversation that he has with Ari, who I think starts their meeting saying, "I've got a child who won't stop sneezing and a wife who thinks out loud." And he says all these things that happen, that there are holes in his children's socks, but do I complain? I do not. He says that these things are all little gifts.
Yep, the holes and all.
Mm-hmm. And it just provides a nice little comparison between I suppose Gus might look over at that family and see it as this beautiful, perfect thing, in spite of the wife clearly, being open to the idea of infidelity, but it's still being this very desirable thing. And then Ari provides this stark contrast of like, we have problems, but the problems are a part of the gift of it, and you come to cherish those problems. And I suppose that might inform Gus's perspective on what it means to have a complete family, and will inform the family that he's going to have as the Grimleys merge with the Solversons.
Exactly, yeah. His mindset of that actually what he has is enough. Even though he has a void left in there from his wife and everything, he still should cherish what he has at that time. And he still, of course, does. He got Malvo to move along for his daughter, because his daughter is all he seemingly is what he thinks is all that he has left. Mm-hmm. And so, it's just a good little character bit for Gus there. And then, of course, when he does get with Molly and has that family, of course, that then cements his reasonings for going to hunt down Malvo. Because I think he takes some of Molly's courage with him. He's kind of inspired by her to go after Malvo himself.
Definitely, yeah. He holds her in such high regard because, again, he sees himself as, a postman in policeman's clothing, whereas he just views Molly as an absolute hero.
As a super cop.
A super cop, absolutely. And the fact that when she's there and she's got all the boards with the all the different connections and everything, and he doesn't view it as like, oh, that's my wife's like obsession or anything. I think he just admires the fact that she's so dedicated to finding the truth, and he trusts that she, she's got it right.
Absolutely. Well, he's seen firsthand the cost and the potential dangers of seeking the truth, and maybe he feels a little bit indebted to her. Being the only other person to listen to him and make his viewpoint seem valid and reasonable. And of course, shooting her, he's got to feel some sort of guilt. So I feel like he's probably doing, I feel like I'll be making up for that little mistake all that year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting as well, like going back to the Lester parallel of, Lester, obviously bludgeons his wife to death, and Gus accidentally shoots his future wife.
Yes, they're just the same mild-mannered character, the two sides of the same coin, I think. Mm-hmm. Lester, both problems with their wives, and they go split off into completely divergent paths. Both of them a void in their lives, that's for sure.
Yeah. But obviously, if Lester is, Lester's relationship with his wife is toxic from the get-go, it seems, and it just seems to have made Lester grow in a very different way, whereas Gus is enriched and nourished by Molly's companionship, and it enables him to ultimately do what's right and, slay the villain in the way that, Lester wasn't able to. He tried to kill Malvo as well and ultimately failed to, whereas Gus was able to succeed.
Exactly. And I did a bit of research once again, and I think we touched upon this sort of last episode in our Molly one. But I just wanted to know kind of your viewpoints on the fact that it is Gus that ends up getting Malvo in the end, and not Molly. Because I've seen reviews at the time being like, "Oh, that's a bit disappointing. That's a bit lackluster. That Gus, the nice guy, ends up shooting him cold-blooded. Oh, that's a bit blah blah blah." It should have been Molly in the end, because that would have been way more satisfying. Which I personally disagree with, but I've seen a lot of people talking like that in my research I've been doing this week. So I'm just wondering what your sort of viewpoints on that are.
It's an interesting one, because I remember the first time I watched it, and I was very much of that sort of mindset of like, yeah, it should have been Molly, particularly with regards to the context of the movie, that the TV show is based on, in which, Marge is the one who is able to snag the bad guy at the end, whereas in this one, Molly's not even present. Although I suppose it could be argued that, Marge has never really been after I can't remember the name of the guy who feeds Steve Buscemi into the wood chipper now.
Oh, Peace the Mayor's character, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not doing a quick Google. Don't pay any attention to me. I'm not looking up.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
It is... oh my God, how do you pronounce this? Yeah,
it's a weird one, isn't it?
Geyer? Gaear?
Geyer, yeah?
Geyer Grimsrud.
Geyer Grimsrud, okay. Yeah, quite similar to Grimly, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, probably another parallel, I think.
But, again, she hasn't spent the whole movie trying to chase him. She's been trying to get Jerry. And, of course, when Jerry's ultimately captured, Marge is nowhere near either. But I suppose the difference is that we have seen Marge have that kind of final heroic triumphant moment, whereas with Molly we've had things where we've seen her be brave and heroic, but she falls short of achieving the kind of glory, I suppose, that the Marge is, because when she's able to shoot Geyer as he's running across the ice and the music's swelling and it is a badass moment.
Yeah.
Whereas with Molly, there are moments where it's undoubtedly badass, but there's a sense of closure which never quite comes with Molly, which I suppose by the end is something that she herself, like the audience, has to do as well, is to let it go. But of course she gets the last laugh because she gets the last line of the show, which is when Gus is saying they should be given the praise to you, the award to you, and she says, "No, that's okay. I get to be chief." And that's when that is the final line of the whole show, and that's when the music swells, and that's the closure that you need right there.
Yep, exactly. I feel like if you had a big bombastic, sort of gunfight moment with Molly there, it would still be a satisfying end. But I think it would be a little bit of a mixed kind of feeling for those characters, because if they had totally gotten what they wanted, in the most satisfying way, then I think there's a risk of you kind of going, oh well, now they're getting a bit of an ego now from it. Mm-hmm. If they got they got the key to the city and their faces all over the news and they're a hero and they're suddenly rich and famous and successful and I feel like the fact that it is such a bittersweet moment, but it is very understated and subtle victory, that's what makes it ultimately purer.
Yeah, and the fact that that moment of being able to finally kill the bad guy goes to Gus, who does not want it. He doesn't see the world like that at all, and so it's no wonder that he's saying this isn't right. Again, going back to the idea of Gus almost seems to have this idea of this is how the story is told, but the story's being told all wrong. My wife is the hero; she should be getting all the glory. I'm just the hapless kid lost in the jungle who's just kind of stumbled his way through, found this incredible woman along the way who's taught me how to be a better man. And it's not through detective work. He literally stumbles upon Malvo, who just so happens to be at his weakest state.
Yeah,
and it's not a big fight or anything. He just walks into the room and shoots him.
And shoots him in the cheek.
Yeah. So it's not heroic, and Gus is right to think that it's not heroic. Shooting the bear when his leg in the bear trap. Putting down a sick dog.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And then also uncovering literally all the evidence you ever need right next to him. Mm-hmm. He just stumbles across something that solves the whole case. And it is just that naive optimism that ultimately slays this malevolent, pre-planned evil. which I think is just so good, so beautiful, such a good ending to a first season of a show.
Definitely. Going off on a bit of a tangent about those cassettes.
Please do.
Yes, rewatching the season 1, I came up with another potential animal that Malvo could be. And that is slightly informed by the thing that Ari Ziskin calls him when he encounters Malvo. I think it's a serim, I think the word is.
Sedrim, yeah.
Yes, which is a Yiddish word meaning like he-goat or goat man. And when I realised that, my mind immediately went to a book in the Bible, Leviticus, I believe it is, and it talks about the tradition of the scapegoat. So for those of you who aren't aware of the tradition, the scapegoat is you would get two goats who are of the same family, so like, sibling goats. And one would be offered up as a sacrifice, and the other would be, the leader of the tribe would confess to the goat all of the sins of the tribe, and then that goat would be set loose. And the idea of this goat man who has all of these secrets is seen in this big suitcase of cassettes. All these people who have been on the phone and confessed their dark animalistic deeds to Malvo. And he retains all of these secrets as he just skulks about in the wild. And I thought, I wish I'd said that in episode 2. That would have been so good.
Yeah, well, you said it now, so now it's out there in the world. It is on
Very
the podcast
true.
Finally.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
I
very,
guess,
very good find.
Oh, thanks, man. And while we're here, I suppose we may as well go to Gus's ranking, because I think it is time to once again go to No Saints in the Animal Kingdom. This is the part of the show where we take the character we've been talking about the whole episode and we rank them in the animal food chain and try and describe what their spirit animal would be. So, Jack, do you have any suggestions as to what Gus might be?
I kind of don't have many, unfortunately, and they're quite maybe surface level. And I'm not sure if I mentioned them earlier in an episode, maybe the Molly or the Malvo one. Mm-hmm. But I think, of course, my choice for him is inspired by my choices for others. I think that's how I've come to the conclusions that I've been drawing on.
Makes sense.
Of course, with Malvo being the wolf, I would like to think that Gus is, of course, being a cop. So my first thought, of course, was a hound or a police dog.
Yes.
But he's very naive, and so I thought, well, maybe he's more of a puppy, isn't he? But I don't think I'll say puppy. So I thought maybe he's more of a Labrador. He's sort of small dog. He's a dog that kind of, when you look at him, you just feel good. You feel happy. He embodies energy and positivity. But of course, at the end of the day, is still a dog. And I think the nice parallel is, of course, with Malvo at the end, him being the wolf. He's looking to him, smiling, thinking, I want to see another wolf. I want to see you develop into something feral, into something wild, with big teeth, with big wolf eyes, predator rather than prey. And while, of course, perhaps he is something with teeth, he is something that barks and bites, and he is something of a predator more than prey, he's certainly not feral. He's certainly not a wolf. He is absolutely I don't want to say a trained dog, because I don't want to make it sound like he's, I don't know, under the thumb of being a cop, or under the thumb of his own anxiety, or under the thumb of Molly, or anything like that, because I don't truly believe that. But I certainly think he likes order, and maybe not hierarchy, but he likes structure in his life. He's had a very turbulent life. Things are very uncertain. And he, again, like we mentioned before, he's desperately trying to get to any port in the storm. And so I think Labrador, he likes to have a seemingly structured life, but embodies goodness and positivity, and you just look at him and you go, "Oh, bless."
He's a good dog.
He's a good
boy.
He is a good boy. He deserves a treat.
Absolutely, yes.
Bless him. Bless him.
Yeah, I think we might actually be in total agreement here. I'd very similar. Yeah.
First of the show.
Again, I mean, I love the irony of, the character we see as a dog also being a postman.
Yes.
And a dog catcher, which is very interesting.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of puppy love when Gus and Molly first meet, because even though they're both adults, the way that they court, it has this childlike innocence about it, which is very sweet to watch. And again, that sense of loyalty and the sense of being able to kind of just smell danger on people in the same way that Gus is able to kind of, when he lets Malvo go, he says, I just got a sense about the guy just not being right.
Yep.
So even if he kind of underestimates his own intelligence, it's clear that he has this incredible intuitive nature, which I think he needs to kind of trust more, and that is ultimately what kind of leads him to defeating Malvo as well. That sort of gut reaction to things.
Absolutely.
But to offer an alternative suggestion, and it's a very it's another one of these more experimental ones where we say that what if this is Mowgli in the jungle who's befriending...
That's so weird!
Yeah.
I was literally going to mention the Jungle Book about 10 minutes ago into this.
Because obviously Malvo mentions the Jungle Book and he sees it as a story that he never bought into because he's like, if Mowgli was in the jungle, the animals would just eat him. But again, it's that beautiful difference of perspective of what if Gus is the kid that is able to win over the animals and is able to, befriend the bear and the panther and is able to defeat the tiger.
Shere Khan,
yeah. So
and in the same way that he doesn't understand the Jungle Book, in the same way that Lester doesn't understand Molly's glove parable and question, Gus does embody the Jungle Book and Molly does embody the glove parable.
Yes, and I think because I'm in the, there's this kind of idea in the Coen brothers' work and in a lot of works of fiction which talks about the evil being the unknowable force, and that's what makes it so terrifying. And that narrative it gives the evil side a lot of power, but I always find it so beautiful when the evil side can't comprehend the light. I mean, going back to the Bible, the light will shine in the darkness and the darkness will not understand it. And there's something so beautiful of, the evil being able to say, well, I don't understand how you're still here, how you're still, still fighting back. I've taken everything from you. And it comes from this place that those who dwell in the darkness will never understand, of how the boy can, befriend the wolves. Ultimately,
yes. Even in the face of impossible odds, there's something. That's where the strength of goodness of these characters lie. It's just the fact that these evil characters or these twisted individuals just seem to think that they know everything. They have life sorted out. They've pigeonholed everyone into certain categories, and they think that they know the lay of the land and how the world works, and ultimately someone just comes in completely naive and oblivious to their way of thinking and just wins the day just because they know what's good, and they do it just because they want to see good people be rewarded and good things happen to innocents.
Exactly.
And for evil and misjustice and crime to be not necessarily punished, but for justice to be delivered, for answers to be sought.
That's beautiful, man. And yeah, it's that message of the show which for me just steps it up above many others. And it's something which I think we can all hold in our hearts.
It's a message that's certainly within every season of the show. I think within every last scene of the show in particular, it is that kind of, what's just taken place is weird, and we've seen a lot of horrible things and a lot of horrible characters do reprehensible acts, and sometimes you feel pity or sympathy for them. Sometimes you've got no idea how you think about them or why they've done certain things. But at the end of the day, you know, after every night there is the day, there is the dawn, and there is always something around the corner.
Exactly. And I'm afraid around the corner of this is the end of the episode. So Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a very pleasant one, actually. I actually feel quite inspired after talking about it.
I feel very uplifted now. I've been having a very weird couple of days, but I'm feeling pretty good.
Same.
Compared to all the murder and torture and biblical evil we've been discussing on the previous episodes of the podcast.
Yeah, it's another reason why it's another reason why we love doing this. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Jack, for joining me as always.
And thank you, Thomas, for this whole endeavour, this whole Fargo endeavour.
My pleasure, my friend. And thank you so much to George Matthew for our incredible theme tune.
And thank you to Dan Rhys for our wonderful, wonderful artwork. I know that they have commissions open at this moment in time, and they're absolutely desperate to get some art made for people. So if you're wanting something commissioned, please do seek them out.
Yes, please do. I've seen some of the other ones. In fact, didn't you get a commission off them recently, Jack?
I did. I've still yet to get it framed. I might actually do that later in the week. But I got a Phantom of the Paradise mock poster done up. They did it in their own style and their own format, so it doesn't look like a poster that's already been made, but it is gorgeous, so good. So I need to get on that to get signed and hung up in my living room, because it's looking very bare in here. I've been stuck looking at these bare white walls for so long. I think it's due a change.
Tremendous, man. So I think we've done sort of like the sort of main players for the main story. So
absolutely.
I'm not entirely sure which character we should go for from here. But if you guys have any suggestions of who you'd like to hear about next, you can check out our Facebook page, you can check out our Twitter, and please just let us know what you think of the podcast, any room for improvement, any suggestions of other things we might talk about. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for everyone who's listened so far and has engaged so far. The response, just the amount of people I've listened to this has just been mind-blowing. It's
absolutely
truly wonderful. Truly, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. And we will talk to you guys next time. And don't forget to wrap up, because it's cold out there.
Oh yeah, you betcha.